There's a file on this desk. Not a struggling household. Not someone behind on payments. Someone who looks, by every surface measure, like they're doing fine. Good income, no missed bills, decent credit score. But buried inside that file is a spending pattern that tells a completely different story. 7 specific categories. Most people watching right now are active in at least 3. Stay with that number for a second. The question is whether you recognize yours before someone else does. Music swell. This isn't a warning for people who already know they're in trouble. They're already paying attention. This is for the household that's worked hard for years, believes it's reasonably positioned, and has no idea what its own bank statement is communicating to a trained eye. Looking financially comfortable and being financially secure are not the same thing. They can coexist, but often don't. The gap between them is built one purchase at a time, over years, by people who aren't reckless. People doing exactly what they were conditioned to do. That is precisely the problem. These habits survive not because people are careless, but because they feel earned. After 30 years of work, a certain income starts to feel like permission to spend. At 55, that feeling gets expensive, not because comfort is wrong, but because the timing completely changes the math. A mortgage underwriter, a fee-only advisor, a bank loan officer, none of them lead with your income. They look at your choices. Transaction history, recurring charges, debt structure. Those choices tell a story your income can't override. And these 7 categories tell it loudest. Item 1. The average new car payment now exceeds $735 a month. At 58, rolling into a new loan every 3 years isn't a transportation decision, it's a subscription to the appearance of prosperity. The car depreciates. The payment continues. Your retirement account receives nothing from either. $735 a month from age 50 to 65 is not just $132,000 in payments. Invested modestly over that same period, that capital produces a retirement income contribution most people in this bracket are actively missing. And here's what I want you to sit with. What else in your budget quietly costs you that much compounding potential? The car does not grow. The alternative does. The Federal Reserve's Consumer Finances Survey is clear. The highest net worth households aren't driving the newest cars. The correlation runs opposite. A paid 3-year-old car alongside a funded retirement account isn't a sacrifice. It's a deliberate choice, one that looks identical to everyone else on the road. Item 2. The subscription pile. Most households over 50 are paying for services they've forgotten or rarely use. The real danger isn't any single charge, it's the total. And that total is almost always higher than people estimate when asked. Sometimes by a significant margin. When clients do this exercise for the first time, the number is almost never what they guessed. The average gap between what people estimate they pay in subscriptions and what they actually pay runs well over $100 a month. Pause for a moment. That gap is not an accident. This is not about the $15. It is about what $15 unmonitored says about the $1,500 and eventually the $150,000 sitting in a portfolio that also goes unwatched. Financial professionals read inattention at every scale. The small charges reveal the large ones. Extended warranty revenue in the United States exceeded $120 billion in 2022. The majority of those contracts are never claimed. The retailer knows this. The finance team that priced the contract knows this. The question is whether the buyer knows it before they sign. Every extended warranty is priced with a margin built in for the seller. That margin exists because, statistically, the buyer loses. Here is the part most people miss. The product rarely fails within the coverage window. And when it does, the claim process is designed to discourage completion. You are not the edge case they priced for. A household with a funded emergency reserve doesn't need a warranty. That's the real insight. You buy a warranty when you haven't built the reserve. It isn't protection, it's the price of protection you never created. One is an asset sitting in your account. The other is simply an expense. The average American household spends nearly $1,500 a year on lottery tickets, and that number rises with age. At 58, this isn't entertainment. It's a tax on hoping for a windfall instead of building a plan, and that belief is quietly draining real retirement capital. The lottery habit is not really about the ticket. It is about a quiet belief that the slow, disciplined path will not be enough. That belief, left unexamined, does more financial damage than the ticket itself, because it shapes how every other financial decision gets made from that point forward. $1,500 a year, invested modestly from age 50 to 65, does not produce a fortune. Just think about that math. But it does produce a number that separates a retirement that holds under pressure from one that does not. The margin is not dramatic. It is often exactly this. This is not about being cheap. It is about knowing which brand premiums are purchasing real quality and which are purchasing a logo. At the pharmacy counter alone, the FDA confirms that generics are chemically identical to their brand name equivalents and cost an average of 80% less. There are categories where brand matters: a structural tool, a verified medical device, a component with a documented performance record. And there are categories where the premium is pure marketing. If you have ever stood in an aisle second-guessing yourself between two nearly identical products, you already know how blurry that line can feel. Learning to see it clearly is not frugality. It is a financial skill, and it compounds across every purchase you make. For a household taking 3 to 5 maintenance medications, which describes the majority of people over 55, switching to generics where available is not a sacrifice. It is a correction. The chemistry is the same. The bill is not. That difference, compounded monthly, is real money. The timeshare exit industry generates over $1 billion a year in the United States. That industry exists entirely because the original product was structured to be nearly impossible to leave. Let that sink in. Someone built $1 billion business from other people's regret. That is the product. The maintenance fee is not fixed. It rises. The average annual increase runs between 4 and 6%. At 60, a $1,200 annual fee becomes $1,800 by 70. The owner often has no legal mechanism to stop it. That contract keeps collecting whether the property is visited or not. This is not about blame for the original purchase. The question now is cost minimization. There are legitimate, low-cost exit paths, and there are predatory ones. Knowing the difference matters more than the regret. The money already spent is gone. The fees still coming are not. Americans spend roughly $88 billion annually at warehouse clubs. Roughly 35% of bulk perishables purchased there are discarded before use. Mark the number down. 5% straight into the trash. A discount you throw away is not a discount. The warehouse club knows the psychology well enough to have built a billion-dollar membership model around it. The unit price is lower. The cart is fuller. The bill is higher. And the pantry holds 6 months of something that expires in 2. The math only works if consumption matches the format. For most households over 55, it does not. Just think about that math. For a household of 5, the membership often makes sense. For a household of 2, with no basement storage and a refrigerator that holds a week of food, the math is usually working against them. The membership fee is just the entry cost to that mistake. Each of these 7 has the same root. They feel like safety, comfort, or reward. They are purchased by people who work hard and believe they've earned them. The problem is not the intent. The problem is the effect. Intention and outcome are different columns on the same ledger. A financial professional reviewing a household's transaction history does not see the intentions behind these purchases. They see the pattern. And the pattern tells a story, about discipline, about priorities, about how well this household manages the gap between income and security. That story is already being read and scored. Carrying a $5,000 balance at 24% costs over $1,200 a year in interest alone. Most people assume that dangerous spending is the big, obvious purchase they remember. It's actually the opposite. The cost that kills your finances is the one that never shows up on any receipt. That $1,200 never appears as a single purchase. It is invisible, and that invisibility is exactly why it persists. Read that line again. The decade from 52 to 62 is unlike any other. Compounding is front-loaded, earning years are shrinking, and the margin for error is narrowing fast. What you spend here doesn't just cost money, it costs options. Retirement dates, healthcare choices, security, things you simply cannot buy back. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances shows it plainly. Households with the lowest net worth spend the highest share of income on visible status. That is not a coincidence. It is a mechanism. The spending pattern does not follow the wealth gap. It creates it. There is a point where a spending pattern stops being a habit you can change and becomes a constraint you have to manage. That point is not at retirement. It arrives quietly, usually around 60. Stop and think about that for a second. By then, the structure has already been decided. The households that arrive at 65 with genuine security are not the ones who earn the most. They are overwhelmingly the ones who spend most deliberately in the 15 years before. The income level is similar to their neighbors. The decisions are not. That gap is everything. Go through them one by one. Car loan cycling. Unmonitored subscriptions. Extended warranties. Routine lottery tickets. Reflexive brand premiums. A timeshare contract. Warehouse buying beyond your household size. Count yours honestly. Not to feel guilt. Guilt changes nothing. To know your number. That number is exactly where this work begins. If 3 or more of these are active in your life, the question isn't whether you have a problem. The question is how many more years you'll wait before fixing it. Stay with that for a second. The cost of delay isn't abstract. It's compounding every single month. Removing these from your monthly budget does not mean living smaller. It means redirecting the same dollars from things that signal prosperity to things that reduce it. The lifestyle does not have to change. The destination does. That distinction is the entire point of this conversation. For someone between 52 and 62, the recaptured dollars have a clear priority order. High-interest debt elimination first. Catch-up IRA or 401k contributions second. A fully funded liquid emergency reserve third. That order is not arbitrary. Each step removes the mechanism that made the next one necessary. After age 50, the IRS allows additional catch-up contributions to IRAs and 401k, as that most people in this demographic are not fully using. That is money the tax code is actively offering. The only question is whether the monthly budget has room for it. These 7 habits answer that question. Americans over 50 carry an average of $27,900 in non-mortgage debt. Not student loans, car notes, credit cards, and the financial residue of these 7 habits. That number has a real monthly cost, and most people carrying it have never stopped to calculate what it actually is. The first 30 days do not require a major decision. They require 3 things: a complete subscription audit, a direct conversation about the vehicle loan rate, and one specific look at the credit card interest line. Sound like a lot? It isn't. 3 focused actions. 30 days. That is exactly where this starts. Someone who works through this list at 55 arrives at 65 with a materially different set of options. Not a different income, not a different career, the same life, the same earnings. But dollars that were leaking have been redirected, compounding quietly for 10 years. Picture that. The person who will not change any of this turned this off in the first 3 minutes. You are still here. That matters. It means the awareness is present. Awareness is not the finish line, but nothing changes without it. You have already done the harder part. Of the 7, the vehicle loan cycle is almost always the highest leverage correction for households in this income range. Not because cars matter more than the rest, but because the monthly number is largest, and the alternative is simplest to execute. That is where the math moves fastest. The research is unambiguous on this. Households that make structured corrections between 55 and 62 improve their projected retirement income significantly, not because they saved more years, but because they eliminated the drag working against them every single month. The window is not closed. Read that line again. There's a steadiness that arrives when your monthly outflow finally works for you instead of against you. It's quiet. It doesn't look like anything from the outside, not a car, a receipt, or a membership card. It's simply enough. Sit with that. 2 households. Same income for 30 years. One arrived at 65 with options. The other arrived with obligations. The income was identical. The net worth was not. The difference was not luck or inheritance or market timing. It was these habits, repeated quietly for a decade. If this conversation has been useful, there is more of it on this channel. No urgency, no sales pitch. Just the same kind of careful thinking applied to the questions most people in this position are still sitting with. If that is worth something to you, stay close. There is one more category, one that does not appear on any credit card statement. It costs more than most of these 7 combined. Majority of people between 50 and 65 are paying it every month without a name for it. That is the next conversation. The file on the desk at the beginning of this belonged to someone who did the work. Not the work of earning more. The work of spending with clarity, tracking, choosing, deciding. The folder closed. The options remained open. The pressure was gone. That is the whole story.